Hey, what is up? Today I'm going to cover 18 new tanks that are going to be launched together with update 18.1, and a lot of these tanks I've already covered in the past, but today I'm going to put them all up in one video because some of these tanks have been updated and some minor changes have been made. So I want to make a video with all these tanks together updated, and we'll go through them as quickly as possible, starting with the Lion, which is the a Leopard 1 in the Italian tech tree, which is going to work a lot like a Progetto 65 and a Caro 45. It's somewhere in between. This tank, of course, is 258 penetration. The Progetto is 268 penetration. The Caro is 248 penetration. So you get what I mean. This thing lies somewhere in between the Progetto 65 and the Caro 45. Also, similar clip size of 4 shells, auto reloader. This thing has a 5-second intra clip. The Caro has how many seconds? 4 seconds intra clip, and the Progetto 65 has 2.5 seconds intra clip. But this thing, even though 5 seconds intra clip, it has a 420 alpha damage compared to the Progetto 65, which has 360 alpha, and the Caro, which has 400 alpha. So it's a bit of a balance in between these two tanks. Really weird placing this tank, as well as it has a funny reload time. It is an auto reloader, but after you fire the first shell, the first shell reload is going to take 20 seconds. The second shell reload is going to take 7 seconds. The third shell reload 9.59 seconds. And the fourth shell another 12.46 seconds. So the staggered reload time is really strange. I don't know how you're going to play this tank. The full reload time is about 49-50 seconds. But if it's up to me, I'm going to say you play this as a single shot with a 5-second reload. That's how I would play it. And then not worry about the intra clip so much, not worrying about the intra reload like a regular auto reloader. So that's how I would consider this Leopard 1, how it would play. But anyway, the dispersion has been improved from 0.40 to 0.38 in 1.18.1. That is the only major change that has been made. Let's move on to the next tank. The T54 Heavy tank. This is a tier 9. Of course, it's going to be some kind of reward, some kind of tank that you need to spend tokens on or something like that. But it is basically a Renegade heavy tank in tier 9. Very slow, very heavy, but it does 450 damage with 240 alpha damage, 240 penetration on standard shells and 320 on premium shells. The aim time 1.92 seconds, and this has a 12-degree gun depression with 0.36 dispersion on the gun. This is a pretty good tank and pretty interesting. I don't know what the armor is going to be like. It's going to be 254 frontally on the hull, 254 on the turret with all this sloping, which makes it pretty interesting that way. But other than that, it's basically going to be a tier 9 Renegade, and I think this tank will do really well. Let's go on to the next tank. The Char Mle.75. This is another interesting tier 9 tank. It has a fast mode and a slow mode. Stock mode and fast mode. Basically, it is like a EBR 75, an EBR 105 or whatever. It's a light tank. It has 2 modes, standard mode and quick mode. When you switch between modes, from standard to fast mode, it takes 1 second. From the fast mode to switch back to standard mode, it takes 3 seconds. So it's going to have, you know, different stats for the fast mode, 78 kilometers an hour going forward, in the standard mode 55 kilometers an hour going forward, as well as, you know, rotation speeds are going to be different, power to weight ratios are going to be different. The gun is going to be really special because it's going to carry 6 shells, auto loader. 6 shells divide into 3 shells each in each package or something like that. And there might be a little bit of a mistake here with the number of bursts, but my initial thought is it's going to, each time you click the shoot button, it's going to fire 3 shells at one shot, doing 200 damage each time. And the space between each shell, it's going to be about half a second. So that's what I think it's going to be. You're going to click once and it'll fire 3 shells in quick succession, and then you can do that twice, and then you need to reload again for how many ever seconds. This is going to be a very interesting light tank. It's very funky. The top speed on this thing is almost as fast as an EBR 70 plus going forward when you have it in fast mode. And the way the gun works, you know, it's, you know, you're not going to fire 3 times, you're just going to click once and it's going to shoot 3 times. So it's going to be very interesting how this gun and this tank will play. Let's move on to the next tank. The Object 283 Tier 9 medium tank, rear turreted. I already covered this yesterday, so if you want to see what this tank is about, you can check out the video from yesterday. The only reason why I'm including it into this video is because I want to make sure all the tanks are covered. So let's move on to the next tank, which is the Object 590 Tier 9 medium tank. Very sexy looking tank. Not much been mentioned about this tank other than it exists, and it exists in 1.18.1. How it will appear, we do not know yet, but it is a pretty interesting tank because this is a Russian auto reloader. This thing will reload the first shell 8.32 seconds, second shell 14.68 seconds, third shell 18.6 seconds, full reload time 41 seconds. The intra clip between shots is 4.3 seconds. So this is like a Caro Combattimento or a Char Future 4 with 0.41 dispersion, 3 seconds aim time. So a Russian or a Soviet or auto reloading medium tank. We'll see how this tank is going to show up or not, or maybe it's going to be in the future. We'll find out soon. Let's go on to the next tank. The K91-2. This is a pretty sexy tank. We've already done this tank. I was hoping it was going to be a tier 8, but unfortunately it's going to be a tier 9. Some changes have been made. This thing is going to have 1000 horsepower, a little bit less hit points. Instead of 1600, it's going to have 1500 hit points, but the power to weight ratio 21.05. This means the agility of this tank is going to be very similar to a T54 100 kind of situation. Aim time as well from 2.01 seconds improved to 1.73 seconds, and the turret rotation as well reduced from 0.12 to 0.10. This tank is going to be a really good, accurate medium tank, and it's going to be very interesting tank to play. Let's go on to the next tank. The TL7-120, the tier 9 tank destroyer from the American tech tree. This tank is also going to be some kind of reward, some kind of token tank that you need to earn. This tank has been buffed a little bit. The reverse speed from 13, now it's 15 kilometers an hour reverse speed. The dispersion as well was supposed to be 0.38, now it's 0.36. Aim time as well improved from 2.59 seconds to 2.40 seconds. This tank is slightly buffed. The dispersion as well, after firing, dispersion from 5 improved to 3. So better sniping capabilities, better improvement in accuracy for this tank. Let's move on to the next one. Aufkl.Pz.V, we've done this tank before. It is in the 1.18.1 files, but will it ever make its way into the game? This tank with the oscillating turret, really interesting. It has been buffed. Reload time slightly nerfed to 3.2 seconds, but the improvements come elsewhere. This tank is pretty interesting because it has that incredible armor from the the frontal turret armor, 330 millimeters, 390 alpha damage, 248 penetration on stock shells, 318 on premium shells. This is a nice versatile heavy tank, that's what they're going to call it. How is it going to make an appearance in 1.18, or maybe not, or maybe later in the year or next year, who knows. But 752 is in the game files, so it is ready to be released sometime soon. Let's move on. This one is the CS52C, which is basically a CS52 with a CS63 turret. Pretty sexy looking, not gonna lie. This tank has two modes as well, a fast mode and a travel mode, and just like the Char Mle.75, when you switch from standard to fast mode, it's gonna take you 2.5 seconds, but from fast mode back to standard mode, it's going to take you only 1.5 seconds. There's going to be two different speeds here. Engine power, you can see 710 on standard mode, 1150 on fast mode. The power to weight ratio as well, a lot of difference between 17.76 and 28.77. If you look at the top speed, you can get 70 kilometers an hour top speed, almost as fast as a wheeled tank. But how fast can you get it? This is where the power to weight ratio of 28.77 is going to play a big role, because 28.77 means this thing is going to jump into 70 kilometers an hour. It's going to be really fast, and this is going to be a really interesting tank that's going to make its way into 1.18.1. Let's go on to the next tank. T54 Tier 8 Premium Heavy Tank from America. This is been buffed a little bit, 200 more hit points from 1400 to 1600 hit points. The engine power as well from 570 to 650 horsepower. Power to weight ratio from that really bad 11.4, now it's 13.0, which makes it a little bit better. Not that great, but a little bit better mobility added onto this tank. The dispersion as well from 0.42, which is pretty bad, and now it is 0.40. The aim time reduced from 3.36 seconds to 2.88 seconds. This is going to be a pretty competitive tank. The way it fires as well, it's going to take 2.5 seconds to fire off the double shot, and then if you're gonna fire it as a single shotgun, it's going to take you 3 seconds to fire the second shell, and that's how the double barrel is going to work on the TS54. Let's go on to the next tank. Okay, this one is a little bit of a bit of a surprise tank. This is not the Tier 7 Aufkl.Pz.V. This is a Tier 8 version. This thing has been in the game files for a while now. Is it going to show up to do something? The stats have been improved. It is, well, I want to say improved, but it's actually not really improved. It has 1100 hit points. The power to weight ratio is incredible, 28.75. The speed is 60 kilometers an hour going forward, 22 in reverse. The rotation speed 45.89. This thing will dance around. Very light tank, very fast and agile. This thing has two types of shell. I think one is a standard shell and one is a HE shell. It only does 165 damage with 221 penetration, so really good penetration, but only 165 damage for a Tier 8 tank. The dispersion is 0.29, really accurate gun and very fast aiming gun as well, 1.44 seconds aim time. This, I think, I don't know what is up with this tank, but it has another gun that does 330 alpha damage and 167 penetration. and the premium shell 200 millimeters penetration with a 9.4 second reload time. It has a 105 gun in tier 8. So you have two choices of a 7.5 millimeter gun with that 165 damage and a 105 millimeter derp gun with 330 alpha damage and 4-2 dispersion. So I don't know what they're going to do with this tank, but this tank, I just want you to know it exists. Let's move on to the next tank, which is the Udarniy. Now there's two tanks that look exactly the same. One is the Udarniy, the other is the 259A. I can tell you the Udarniy has is a little bit heavier, a little bit slower, 300 millimeters turret armor, 221 penetration on the standard shell with 390 alpha, 285 of premium penetration with 0.40 dispersion and 2.97 seconds of aim time. This is the heavier of the two tanks. The 259A is a little bit quicker, but both tanks are going to have the exact same model, exact same skin. It's going to look exactly the same, but they're both going to perform very differently. Let's go on to the 259A and I'll show it to you right now. So here's the 259A. It looks exactly the same skin, same everything, but the 259A is going to be more agile, more mobile, 900 horsepower, but less turret armor, only 260 millimeters. The penetration is 233 on standard ammo, 285 on premium shells. Dispersion is slightly better, 0.36 with 268 aim, 2.68 seconds aim time. But this tank has got better alpha, 420 alpha, but less armor, more mobility. So in my opinion, between the Udarniy and the 259A, I'm going to pick the 259A because it's going to have a little bit better mobility, slightly better alpha damage, and yeah, that's how I feel about these two similar looking tanks. Let's move on to the next one, which is the K2. The K2, another Soviet heavy tank in tier 8. It looks a little bit like a IS-3 but without the pike nose, more like a diamond shaped nose if you ask me. Very heavy tank. It has been tweaked a little bit. The hit points, instead of 1700 it's 1650 now. Instead of 750 horsepower, it's 715 horsepower now. They've basically nerfed it to make it a little bit slower. The power to weight ratio 13, the speed 30 kilometers going forward, 12 in reverse. The rotation speed as well, instead of 24 degrees, now it is 21.9 degrees. View range nerfed as well, from 350 nerfed to 340 meters of view range. This is a very heavy, very heavily armored tank, pretty slow, and in my opinion I don't really think it's anything very special, but let's see where they're going to place the K2 in the game. Let's move on to the next one. Now we're going to move on to the Chinese line. This is the new BZ-176. I've already done a lot of videos about this tank. Of course, this thing is going to have also two kinds of modes, because you have a rocket afterburner mode. You have 4 afterburners which last for 10 seconds each time you fire them. It takes 5 seconds to reload the afterburners, and you can only use it 4 times in one game. It's going to increase the speed from 30 to 39 kilometers an hour when you're using the afterburners, and the power to weight ratio as well, from 10.51, which makes this a really slow tank, to when you use the afterburners it becomes 21 power to weight ratio, which makes it jump into that top speed really quickly. As well, I wanted to show you the armor profile of this tank. From a hull down position, I think this tank has 11 degrees of gun depression. When it's looking at you like that, you really have no place to pan it. Even the top part, because it has an oscillating gun, the back part of the gun pops out. Even though it looks at you, it looks like it has a weak point there where you can shoot, but it is an automatic bounce, so it is going to be impossible for you to hit it and penetrate. But if he is looking away slightly like that, you can shoot the side of it and definitely pen the side of that gun there, even if he's looking away very slightly. Even if it's like that, even if he's looking that much away, you can definitely penetrate that. Imagine if he's pointing at you here and then he looks somewhere else, let's say like that, and you can definitely penetrate him. The 100% chance of penetration. So that's how we're going to fight against the BZ176 tank. It's going to be an interesting tank. I'm looking forward. It is a very sexy tank as well. So this is one of 3 Chinese tanks. Let's move on to the next 2 Chinese tanks. This is of course the WZ113 version 2. This is a tier 8 premium heavy tank, already on the Chinese server. It could be a Chinese server exclusive only, I don't know, but it is in the game files for the rest of us, so it might be introduced into the game for us, I don't know. It has been buffed slightly before they released it. 660 horsepower instead of 600, 50 kilometers an hour going forward instead of 40. The power to weight ratio as well buffed from 14.86 to 16.35. This is a pretty sexy looking tank. It looks like the tier 10 113 but with a slightly like an object 140 kind of turret. I really like the look of this tank. I hope they do introduce this tank into the game for the rest of us. 320 alpha damage with 215 penetration and 265 penetration on premium shells, 0.35 dispersion, which makes the gun pretty good, 2.21 seconds aim time, 9.5 seconds of reload time. I really hope they put this tank in the game for the rest of us. Let's move on to the last Chinese tank in the game, which is the tier 8 Chinese heavy tank that definitely will be released sometime soon, because this has just entered super test not too long ago. I think a week or 2 weeks ago. This is the controversial WZ111 hull with the TN51 Czechoslovakian tier 9 turret, which they just basically cut, copy and paste on the WZ111 hull. So a lot of people are pissed about that. I don't know why, but anyway, this is the new thing. There has been no changes about the stats so far. I did do a video about this tank if you want to go look at it, but this is the last one that is that has been included in 1.18.1. So there is 17 tanks here that I have showed you. One more tank that has not been included in 1.18.1. Let's go straight to it. I'll show it to you right now, which is this tank, the M47 M Project. This tank for some reason has not been added into the 1.18.1 files yet. This is supposed to be a tier 8 medium, something like a super, what do you call that? I can't remember the name of the tank now for some reason. The Super Pershing, basically an up armored pattern in tier 8. This tank is really sexy, looks the part, looks really nice. The stats as well, looks like it's going to be a really fun tank to play, but unfortunately not been added into the game files yet. We don't know, maybe in the coming days, in the coming weeks, before the 1.18.1 release, they could add this into the files last minute and include it into 1.18.1 release. We'll find out in the near future, but that's all I have for you today, all 18 tanks. I hope you've enjoyed the video and took some useful information, and prepare yourself with your wallet and all the knowledge you need about all the new tanks that are coming out. Hope I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.